Hello everyone. Just here to do another video. Excuse me while I fix camera on the webcam. Um, this video I wanted to talk about, it's kind of in the set of the beginners, what would I put in my Book of Shadows? So first off, you might be wondering what exactly is a Book of Shadows and what are the requirements for it. A Book of Shadows is generally any type of book, whether it be a fancy leather-bound journal to a very simple spiral notebook, where people who practice Wicca, paganism, and some who just practice witchcraft will write down a bunch of information from their practice that they, incorporate into their practice, things that they might want to remember, things that they've worked on, experiences, correspondences, all types of information. There's really no limit to what you can and cannot put into this book. There's no set way to make one, to acquire one. There's no special tools needed to make one, to have one. It's as simple as getting a spiral notebook and writing down in it. A Book of Shadows, like I said, is where people who practice will keep their information. Everybody has a different idea of what they want to put in their book, and that's fine. When I recommend somebody that wants to start their Book of Shadows, while they're ready to start off on their practice, is if they felt that they've read enough, that they know where to get this information, a good idea is to copy some of it down into your book, so that way you have a quick reference to this information instead of having to, go back to the internet. It's also good because it's a book you can have right beside you at your altar, instead of, bringing your big clunky laptop or having to go downstairs and just jot it down on a piece of paper and toss it and completely forget about it. So it also helps because things that you write down in your book that you think, oh, I'm not going to use this later on, or, you come back to something, you're like, oh yeah, that's right, I wrote that in my Book of Shadows, and I can go back to it, instead of, oh, what article did I read that on? On the internet did I find that? What book did I read that from? The information will just be right there in your book, and that's kind of what the Book of Shadows is meant for, is convenience in, when it comes to your information. Now, what goes into a Book of Shadows is totally up to you. For example, kind of like a traditional version of a Book of Shadows would kind of include information such as correspondences for crystals, herbs, plants, elements, things like that. While at the same time people can include their spells, their rituals, full moon rituals, Sabbath rituals, different, aspects they use in their practice, such as healing, like crystal healing, making incense, using tarot cards, pendulums, using stones for whatever reason, like crystal grids, things like that, is all pretty good to have in your book when it comes time that you need to reference that again. So I definitely recommend getting a Book of Shadows. Like I said, it's definitely not needed, but it is a very good convenience that, you might need in your practice. Your Book of Shadows can be anything from a spiral notebook, a few pieces of paper put together. You can have it on a hard drive or on your computer, in a file like Word documents. The sky's the limit when it comes to a Book of Shadows, and that's what I like about paganism and Wicca, is because it's so broad, and that the ideas are endless to what you can do. So, what to put in your Book of Shadows? Some people, and this is usually a personal preference to most Wiccans, in their book to write down the Wiccan read on the first few pages. simply because the Wiccan reed is what the Wiccans, use as kind of their, like, little code of law. So that's a good thing to write in there, so you can remind yourself when you open your book that these are the values that I cherish and hold so dear, and this is my book where I keep my information and all my personal experiences within my practice, and this is a very personal part of you that a lot of people prefer not to show off. You'll see some pagans will share a glimpse of what their Book of Shadows looks like on YouTube, on Tumblr, on all kinds of different sites, and there are those that prefer not to, just because they believe it is a personal part of their craft that nobody else really needs to see for whatever reason. And in that way, that's kind of how I am, just because, that book is infused with the energy and the time that I've taken to put into this book so that I can have my information and my deities and all my correspondences in that book. And when it comes to these books, some people will have separate books and many books at the same time. There can be the Book of Shadows. There are books where they write down simply just the straight fact information, such as the correspondences, things like that, information on their deities, and the list goes on. Some people prefer to have a book where they simply write down their experiences from doing rituals and spells, and what kind of, how they felt, and what went through their mind, what went through their head, and what actually happened in their practice. So, really, your Book of Shadows can be one book, it can be 3 books, it can be 40 books if you so prefer. So there is no set way to make a Book of Shadows. There's no set thing that should be in your Book of Shadows. It is totally open to interpretation. So I just wanted to share that with you guys because I know a couple of people have recently asked me that question on my Tumblr. So I kind of wanted to put that into the open so that you can come back and look at that and be like, oh yeah, I don't have to put anything in it. There are a lot of metaphysical shops that will sell, books that look like they were made for the craft, like leather-bound books with giant pentacles or triple moons or the triquetra on them, things like that. But it's really not necessary. It's just a personal preference of what exactly you would like your book to look like. So that's all for that subject, and I really hope that kind of helped out just because I've had a few people asking. So I'm going to go work out on the next few videos, and feel free to, message me comments, video responses, leave those kind of things for me to get back to you on. So yeah, all have a blessed day. Blessed be.